We all know how powerful music can be, but I think for over the years when I've heard about music therapy or I've heard about people that incorporate music into their practice, I have always felt a little bit intimidated because I am not a musical person. So I love music and I love listening to music, but as far as like bringing in instruments or whatever, I've been a little bit like I think just avoiding that because I wasn't sure if I how to do that. So I had this lovely conversation with our guest today, and she is a music therapist and she works with children with early developmental trauma, but she gives us some really practical ways that we can incorporate music, even just like pop songs, pop culture, really simple drumming and humming to regulate the nervous system, to build relationship, build trust. And I do feel like after this interview, if you're not incorporating music, you're missing out. There's so many ways you can do it where you don't have to be musically inclined. So I am going to roll that intro and then I will introduce you to today's guest. I'm Rebecca Britt, and this is the Stable Moments Podcast. I started this podcast to understand from all perspectives how we can help end the foster care crisis. The overwhelming response was we need to support our local communities. Unwanted, abandoned, orphaned children are the community's responsibility. We must support, guide, love, invest, raise up generations that will nurture, love, and support their own children to end this crisis. So, the purpose of this podcast is to build an army of people that are interested and willing to take responsibility of our foster youth and who are supportive of foster and adoptive families. This is the on-ramp for people who want to get involved but might not know where to start. I want this to be a place where community members feel like they can make a difference, where they feel good enough to make that difference, and believe that they can be a big deal in the life of a child. Thanks for being part of our community. Together, we can end the foster care crisis. Crystal, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. I haven't had a guest in a while, so I'm really excited to have a guest and give some more perspective, some more professionals in the space who are serving the kids that we care so much about. So I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and let us know who you are, what you do, and how you got into working with kids with developmental trauma.
Yeah, I am based in the UK, based in London, and I am a HCPC registered music therapist, and I'm also an EMDR therapist. And so I have a private practice where I work with the adoption and special guardianship community. I also work for a children's hospice based in London, where I work with bereaved parents or siblings who are impacted by child bereavement. I first got into music therapy because it came to a point where I'm classically trained as a pianist, and it came to a point where to excel as a classical pianist, the amount of practice we need to put in needs a lot of sacrifice. And I just love being with people too much to make that sacrifice. So I was looking for something that allows me to both use music and be with people. And music therapy was the answer for me. And then the reason I got into adoption work is actually I'm just so impressed by the commitment in community. Because when you work with families, sometimes it can feel quite helpless in that you see the child 1 hour a week and you see all the problems around it, and you just feel like, yes, I'm doing my best, trying to do something good. And I really like what you said a couple of episodes earlier. You said we're not fixing it, we are showing up. And sometimes it is hard to show up when you feel like the system isn't there to support the child. Whereas when I work in the adoption community, the parents, carers are so committed, social workers are so committed. So I really do feel like maybe it is a very selfish reason that I really do feel like I can do good in this area. That's how I got into it.
Amazing. So you actually started with the passion for music and then became a therapist. And was your specialty always music therapy?
Yeah, and so I was teaching piano for some time, and that was quite interesting as well because that gave me a bit of direction, of confirming that yes, music therapy is what I want to get into. Because just to share a bit of cultural background, I'm from Hong Kong, where things are very competitive. Music, academically, everything's very competitive, and I really want to find a place where I can enjoy music and enjoy being creative. And when I was teaching, I realized that maybe, teaching, the ultimate goal is you want the children to learn something. Whereas in therapy, the goal is growth. The goal is growth and self-awareness. And I think that's, for me, that's where creativity belongs.
I love that so much. So you're both a music therapist and an EMDR therapist. So can you, for the audience, just give us a quick rundown of what EMDR is?
So EMDR is a trauma processing protocol, and it initially is actually quite a young therapy. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Quite a mouthful. It was invented in the 1980s, so it really isn't that old. And it's an 8-phase protocol, and its goal or its thesis is that when people experience trauma, we naturally have the capacity to upload the trauma from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex and then process it properly. But sometimes that uploading doesn't happen. And that could be because the person was too young. It could be because the person was struggling with their physical health at the time, or the severity of the trauma, loads of reasons. And what EMDR does is to upload the traumatic memory from the survival part of the brain, the amygdala, to the prefrontal cortex, to the bigger part of the brain. So your brain can start making sense of it, and therefore eliminate or reduce PTSD symptoms like flashbacks or panic attacks. And in children, talking about complex PTSD, in children that might present itself in being trapped in the state of always feeling that they're in danger, always not feeling safe, and difficulties bonding with their caregivers, difficulties bonding with peers, difficulties focusing. So really, EMDR is just drawing our natural capacity to do the uploading and trust that our brain is capable of doing that, that we are biologically designed to survive these traumatic moments.
And you can use this modality on children, adults. It's not just adults going back into their traumas, but it can be children that are working with their complex trauma.
Yeah. But I think what you're touching then is a question that a lot of people ask. The fact that children often experience trauma pre-therapy, and then how do they work through something that they don't cognitively remember? I think that is the key, isn't it? And with EMDR, when it was invented, it was designed for adults who experience single trauma. So this could be veterans, this could be someone who survived a car crash, it could be someone who survived sexual assault. And these are single event trauma. And the way that we process single events in EMDR is quite straightforward. We call them targets, and we just work through the target. And we come to that language later. Because our often is so clinical, you can't go in a session and say to a child, let's work through your target. How many targets have we got? So, and we do have to be very creative in EMDR when we work with children who have experienced multiple and sustained traumas early in their lives, and and to the complexity, the fact that they can't verbalize what happened. Which is why I think my background in music therapy marries really well, because where I feel EMDR is very clinical, it's very is scientific, but it's the language that we use with our mind. in terms of how to explain how it works. You just can't explain why and how it works without talking about neuroscience. And I think EMDR, if you say to someone, we're going to move your eyes left to right, and you're going to tap left to right, left and right very quickly, and it's going to help you process your trauma. It does sound really bizarre. So you do have to explain it. And you do have to have your client buy in the process so they're motivated to do the work. Whereas music therapy is almost the complete opposite of the spectrum. Well, at least the music therapy that I'm trained in is psychodynamic based. So we talk about counter-transference. We talk about how the child makes us feel and use that information to inform us of how the child attach with people. We talk about improvisation, making music together in the room. We talk about listening to music and thinking about how it impacts the body. So it's all very, sometimes people can find music therapy very fussy in how we describe it. So I really think music therapy and EMDR complement each other, because music therapy has the creativity and skills that allows us to engage with children, young people, even adults, whereas EMDR is very structured, very science-based, very trauma-informed. And the two, just when you marry the two together, it just gives us a broader range of tools to use when we are with children.
That makes a lot of sense. And we talk about Stable Moments isn't therapy, and we are just a mentorship program, but we talk all the time about how it can be more healing just because of the child's ownership and buy-in, because they're wanting to show up and develop life skills and they're wanting to hang out is essentially what we're doing to them. It's very, they may be all therapied out or not want to meet with any therapist, or they've had to learn all of this therapeutic language, clinical language, and they know all the things to say, but they don't want to do talk therapy. They certainly don't want to sit face to face with somebody they don't know and talk about what's happened to them, especially when there's been high turnover and it's new people coming into their lives all the time. Yeah. So creating this environment or this activity of something to do that feels very safe, unintrusive. I can see how the music is very much like the activities that we use, which are like, we're just asking you to create with us.
Yeah. Winnicott, he's a psychotherapist. Winnicott talked about how creativity or being able to create requires health, and a healthy mind is a mind that can create. And I just love that quote. And therefore, if you can create, you're working towards healthy and a healthy psyche.
I love that. Yeah. And I couldn't help but think about when you said EMDR brings trauma or things that you weren't able to process to the front of the brain so that you can process them. I don't want this to be too neuroscience-y, but I was wondering about how much it relies on somebody to have had a brain that developed, because people with one-time traumas later on in life that had a healthy upbringing, their brain, they were safe, their brain was able to develop properly. How does EMDR or how does integrating the music help with working with a brain that really didn't get to develop or didn't get to understand how to process much of anything outside of survival?
I'm going to come to the music first, and then we'll talk about EMDR. And just a very random nugget. I don't know if people heard of polyvagal theory. When I first heard of it, I just find it really hard to wrap my head around because there's so much information in it. And one thing that I found really interesting is the etymology. So the word vagus is the Latin for wandering. So basically, there are these nerves, that wandering nerves around our body that that is responsible and responsive to stress and control how our whole body responds to stress. And again, we're not going to go too deep into the neuroscience, but when a child experiences sustained abuse or sustained neglect early in their life, their body, the whole body, not just the brain, learns that my body needs to be in survival mode to survive. And our brain and our body is so clever in that it calculates our best chance of survival. And the strategy might be different for each child. So for some children, they might to please adults because that's how they learn. Like if I please adults, to myself, to my abuser, that's the best bet of my survival. And as they grow up, they have learned that, even though it's not cognitively, they haven't cognitively learned that. They don't know why to do it. Their body has learned it. And if you think about all we do is to survive, all we want to do as humans is to survive, and it's almost inevitable that they're going to grow up to continue this pattern if we don't resolve this or if they are not given the right support. And what's really helpful with music is that it's non-verbal. It can be non-verbal. There are music with lyrics, but music in itself is non-verbal. So it taps into the part of the brain and the body that can resonate without words. And that's really important because the way we experience music has a lot in common in the way we experience the world. So an example would be the old Jaws theme with the shark. Yeah, I don't know if younger people know exactly. Exactly. And I don't know if people have tried watching a scary movie and turning off the sound. It instantly becomes less scary. So music has that. Music has the ability to impact on our mood and our emotions, and it also has the ability to inform our body of whether we are safe. So going back to the Jaws theme, we listen to that music going dun, 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 it speeds up. It gives our brain the information that the rhythm is accelerating, and therefore something either very exciting or very scary is coming. That's why movie music is so successful, because it's built in our body. To experiencing music is something that's built in our body, because that's how we know whether our environment is safe or not. And when you think about, take a simple example like excitement. And I'm gonna use you as a test subject. When you experience excitement, where do you feel that in your body?
My heart.
Your heart. Can you describe the sensation?
For me, it's very close to anxiety.
Okay. And
it's like tightness.
Tightness. Would you say it's like a fast-paced tightness, or like it's fast, it's got a speed? Okay. If we were to translate that into a piece of music, so we know that it's fast. How about the note? Would it be high or low, or just
High?
High. Right. So we already have fast speed, something with high pitch. About instruments, what kind of instrument? What kind of sound?
I want to say drums or piano.
Okay. Drums. Yeah. Drums or pianos. And something high pitch, something fast on drum or piano. Yeah. And see what we did there. We are able to use music to describe, to help you become more articulate of your experience of excitement. And that is helpful. Sometimes I use this exercise when I first met the child. I don't go into something very deep into what this anxiety sounds. Usually I use excitement or happiness. But I often find that children who have experienced early trauma really struggle to articulate how even good, happy emotions feel in the body. But if I ask them, is it fast? Is it slow? or is it high, is it low? They can often say that. So even through that process, we help the child to be more articulate of how their body feels when they're experiencing certain emotion. And also their process of thinking about, and saw your thinking phase earlier when we were talking about the instrumental piece, the process of asking them to make those decisions or communicate what musical qualities will be involved is a cognitive process. So really, we are able to then navigate certain emotions for a specific child with objectivity, relative objectivity, because they're describing their experience without really describing their experience, because all we're talking about is music. It's entirely same, talking about music.
I love this so much because when you first reached out, the first thing I thought of is, oh, the life skill certainly that music fits in is self-regulation. And we have 6 life skills in the Stable Moments model. But now I'm thinking about the critical thinking and independence piece, just because we have our kids make a plan. And a lot of times it's tough for them to just come up with like, how would we do that? Or what are the steps that we would take to get something done? And so they come up with their own plans each time, and then we can redirect them back to their plan. But even in this, building this critical thinking of connecting how your body feels to something that you could create or explain, it definitely is using different parts of the brain and its emotional awareness, which is another one of our life skills. But when you were just saying that, helping me put my excitement to what something could sound like. Of course, I wanted to go make the song. I wanted to go, let's go do that. Let's go make the song. But how neat it could be to see my excitement song transition to what would a calm song sound like, and allowing them to modulate or notice what happens in their body when the song changes. That feels huge. And one of the things that we do is a lot of times when kids are dysregulated, or they're dysregulated often, they get this constant pressure cooker throughout school and home of like, calm down. It feels like the adults in their lives may be preempting a huge boil over. So they're kind of like, calm down, color in the lines, don't do that. Let's be quiet. Let's calm our body. And it's so much, it's actually like, as much as we're trying to regulate, we're really like, we have our nervous system is like, not really regulated when we're asking kids to chill out. And as a social worker, I've learned that can come off to a kid like, we can't handle all of you, or we can't handle you if your pot does boil over. And so one thing we do as Stable Moments is we will say, maybe we need to just go get as big as we can get right now. And we start doing really big exercise and we yell as loud as we can yell, but then we fall on the floor and we get as quiet as we can get. And so we can kind of show the regulation that way, and also show that we're not afraid of the child getting as big as they need to get. But I was just thinking about how music could so help that exercise, whether it was a song they were creating themselves or putting on music to match that bigness, that party that's going on, or maybe it's not a party, whatever that's going on. And then transitioning to music that may also show them that they can go from that big expression to a smaller expression, and notice how their body responds. So is that something that you would support in doing?
I think it depends on the moment. Because I think what you point out earlier, when a child's very dysregulated, people saying calm down, we know ourselves. When I'm very angry, I can talk to myself, calm down, Crystal. It just doesn't work because our nervous system doesn't speak English. What it speaks is sensory information, and music being one of them. There are loads of other sensory information as well. things like strong smell, or smells that the young people like, or taste, or a change of body temperature. Those are all really good tools to draw on when the young person is dysregulated. And I think the calming down comes when the young person's body and the mind, the nervous system, realize that, oh, actually, yeah, I am in a safe, or I am in a safe place. And there are the musical quality that encourages that. So generally speaking, earlier we were talking about rhythm, talking about the Jaws theme. And generally speaking, music that are predictable gives us a sense of safety. The song Happy, Pharrell Williams, and very steady beat, major tone, no surprise in the song. Those are the kind of perhaps age appropriate songs that young people can draw on. I think it's the stability in rhythm, and also the limited range. So if you play a piece of music that's up and down, very high, very low, all the time, changing very regularly, it just sends a signal to the body and the brain that I don't know what to expect. I'm going to be on edge. So if we are thinking about music that can settle the nervous system, we are thinking about regular rhythm, limited range. So that's why playlists are really useful. Playlists that you make with the young person is really useful, because number one, they get to take ownership, which I know is a big part of stable moments. They get to take ownership of their music. Number two, they have done something for themselves for a rainy day. So it's not just the list of music that is the resource. It's the fact that they have sat down and they have done this thing for themselves. And when they need it, it's there for them. It's almost like them doing themselves a favor for later when they need it.
I love that. Okay, yes. And I can, now that I've said what I said, I was like, as much as we want to handle all of kids, and we want to allow them to have that expression while they are feeling revved up, there could definitely be some consequences of, let's put on revved up music and make you more dysregulated, right?
Yeah, but I think that's why I said it depends on the moment. Because if they're in a safe place where they want to explore, they want to express, then there's energy in school somewhere. So it at school, and they're so dysregulated that they can't focus, then maybe that is not the space all the time, all the place. But maybe if they're home, they're in a safe environment, and they really do want to get things out, then that could be an opportunity to use music to match how strongly they feel in their body. And very often, as they listen to the music, new insights will come up. So I'm training something called music and imagery, where we find the piece of music together, loop the piece of music as they draw, and then we interpret it. Is that the word? And we can analyze the drawing together. Then as you can tell, and English is not my first language. Yeah. And very often, even when people start with something that's quite complex, something that's traditionally not considered as a supportive piece of music, they often do come out with new insight and learn new things about themselves. And the key is to do it with someone safe, and do it in a safe space and time.
Amazing. And I was just thinking, if I were to hand my 6-year-old any instrument, what's going to come out of that instrument is going to be dysregulated. He is gonna almost break the guitar strings, or he's gonna pound on the piano, and oh sweet, you give me something that I can use, and I'm just gonna make as loud as music as possible. So if I was in a situation like that, are there ways that you can bring the session back, or little things like making a game out of it or whatever, to get a specific rhythm or give some direction so that it feels a little bit more intentional?
I'm going to share something that the first day of music therapy training, that my teacher told me. So I'm going to use piano reference. They said if you told someone to play anything on the piano, either they get so overwhelmed they don't play anything, or they play everything. So the key here is boundaries and frame. So giving them a framework, giving them boundaries or rules. I don't necessarily like that word. But if I just said you can play anything, but only on black keys, immediately the scope of creativity is a lot more contained. And immediately someone who might feel very overwhelmed would be like, oh, so I don't need to use every note. All I need to do is to start with the black key. Something about containment is really important, because you're right. If you're like a 1-year-old and if I give her an instrument, or if I let her come in this room 5 minutes later, it doesn't look like this. Safety is very important. There are considerations like, is this child's mental capacity enough that I don't need to make sure the room is safe before they come in. So there is something about adults taking ownership in the fact that we're responsible in keeping children safe. So only showing the instruments that are safe for them to use, that in itself is important. If you want to improvise, if you want to play music together, just give some boundaries, give some framework. Either a time boundary, you can use a little timer, 5 minutes. You're just going to play anything for 5 minutes. And when it's time to stop, or when it's about time to stop, I'm going to play the drum really, really, really quickly. And I want you to match me. I want you to meet me here. And then we're going to do stop, hands up, and complete silence. Actually, it works really well, because it is against human nature. It is against our body to keep playing when we are really together playing the drum. To keep playing, it makes the body, it's not natural for the body.
I love that. I love framing it, having a plan, going into it with an intention. So I know that you wrote a blog for us that we released earlier this month, and it was really, really helpful. Could you walk us through a couple of practical tools that mentors could try? So these are community mentors, they're volunteers that they could try. And I love the idea that you had that was beginning with a child's favorite song. So could you talk about that?
Yeah. So that idea of when you first met the child, it can be quite awkward. When I first meet someone new, I think about when I was 14, 15. I felt like I was permanently trapped in awkwardness. I wouldn't know where to start. So music can be a really good way in, because sometimes you can sit with a teenager when it would be complete silence. Or when you ask them, so what are you struggling with? Complete silence, but they can talk the entire hour continuously. So it's just about music being something that is quite approachable, not clinical. I'm curious, or I'm interested about the musical taste. And it's also, it sits quite comfortably in that it is personal, because we cannot experience music objectively. I can't imagine someone listening to music and seeing it as that. You can see it as an intellectual experience, but even then it takes interpretation. You can say whether I like this piece or not. So music is personal. And actually a lot of people say music is the universal language. I disagree, because music is very cultural. So it's impacted by the family's culture, by someone's ethnical culture as well, or just the community that they're in, like the school's culture, youth culture. So it is not universal, in my opinion, but I think it's quite personal. But it's also at a safe distance. We're not talking about the most intimate details. Like, what's your life story? How did you come into your parents' care? That is personal. Whereas the music is personal. But also, it's personal in an okay way. So it's a really safe arena for us to get to know young people.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And we have an activity called All About Me because it's like a dream board, but a lot of kids that we work with, they might not be able to answer the question, what's your favorite song? There's a lot of blankness or they don't know what the right answer is. They don't know what you want them to say.
Yeah.
And they haven't thought a lot about who are you as a person. So we try to make a snapshot, just a collage of favorite foods, favorite sports, movie characters, who, if I looked at this page, what could I learn about you? And, they end up being a piece of paper that has soccer, a piece of pizza on it, or whatever that they like. But I could see whether or not even if they don't have a favorite song or that's hard for them to put their finger on, is it country? Is it kids songs, because they're real young? What songs do you sing? So trying to put a finger on it for them if they're not very confident in exactly what they like.
That is really interesting because you're right. I think children, not only is it hard for children who have experienced early childhood trauma to name their personal preference because of their tendency of pleasing, or they just feel really confused about a lot of things, or cognitively thinking about the brain, to be able to draw an idea out from the blue. It's really hard. It's actually asking the brain to do a lot for children. So in those situations, again, framing is really helpful. You can say things like, I'm just going to play 2 pieces of music from different backgrounds. Can you tell me which one you prefer? So immediately the scope is so much smaller, so much more contained, and you're asking the question in a much less open-ended way. It's a two option. It's much easier to manage for young children than.
And you're making it like an interactive activity rather than I'm putting the pressure on you by asking you a question and expecting you to have an answer. It's like, oh, cool. Let's get curious and let's get experimental and adventurous and let's actually play some music and see which one we like more, or we can rate it from 1 to 5 or.
Yeah. What instruments? What kind of do you think you like? The drum more, the piano more, or how about trumpet? Do you like trumpet more or the flute more? Just very simple guiding questions.
I love that because I think a lot of times, anybody, but mentors may take a concept or a question and they're like, sure, I'm going to ask the kid questions. But then as soon as it's like, there's a sticking point, it gets difficult to well, he didn't know, he didn't know his favorite song. And so we didn't really have anything to put on the page because I couldn't, know what I mean? It's like a skill for sure to be able to go let's get curious. How would we figure this out? And be there and offer options. I mean, it's hard for me to name my favorite. I couldn't name my favorite song. And even genre is all over the place, right?
Exactly.
And so having the confidence to say to say, I like all sorts of music. And actually, for me, it would probably be easier to say what I don't like. So there's a few things I don't like. So I think that remembering to stay curious and let's explore that when we hit a roadblock rather than that awkwardness that you feel. It's not the kid that feels it. A lot of the times now the mentor is sitting there going, okay, this is awkward. I don't know where to go with nothing,
Yeah.
So let's talk also about the idea of a feelings playlist.
So the feelings playlist is, we talked a little bit about using music to help our body settle earlier. The feeling playlist is more about acknowledging that when we are angry, we don't necessarily want to listen to angry music. So it's when John's regulated, looking at when you're angry, how does your body feel? And what music would help you settle. So you can even use language like, when you're angry, your body feels, you feel it in your arms. It might feel really fast. How would you like your body to feel? And it might be like, I just want my shoulders to drop. I just want to feel less fast. I want to feel less hot. And then you can say, okay, let's keep going down that road. How does a piece of music that is not too fast and not hot sound like? And again, it is drawing on that cognitive thinking again. And it's very important to do this when a child is regulated, because if a child is angry and dysregulated, it's very hard to engage that part of the brain. And what you need to do first is to help them feel safe again, or equip them with the tools that they can use to help themselves regulate. They co-regulate things like breathing together, things like EMDR. Sometimes we ask parents to tap the child's body gently if they can tolerate pressure. So if they're dysregulated, we need to use the sensory tools to help them settle first. And then we can have those conversations around what kind of music would help you. How would you like to feel like? Sometimes young people are so creative in that some young people I work with start the playlist with something that's closer to what feels like anger to them. Because they said, if I'm very angry and someone just play a calm piece of music, then I just want them to fall away. Like, I don't want to engage with that. So sometimes children design their own playlists in that. It starts with faster beat of music, so they engage in their body, and then gently just work towards musical quality that feels calmer to them. And that's why it has to be very collaborative experience, because we wouldn't know what music sounds like, sounds angry or calm to that young person. And also music does come with a bit of risk, because it is, like I said, it is personal. So if someone experienced trauma while a specific type or piece of music is in the background, the body's going to remember it. And that's where we have to be mindful. If we notice that a specific type of music upsets a young person, dysregulating young person, it's probably telling you something. It's probably information. And that tells us that, right, let's try something else.
I love that so much, because the child comes up with what's going to work for them. They come up with music that might make them feel happy, that might make them feel calm, or that they might just want to listen to while they're feeling dysregulated or angry or whatever. And if we make that while they're regulated, and then we have that, just bringing that up and saying, do you want to put music on? Do you want to reference your playlist? I've got it up. Like, showing a child that we heard you. We've got it here. If you want to use it, we can use it. And it gives the child a feeling of like you understand them, but also the mentor another resource that they can use. It's an intervention the child built, which again is going to allow them to adopt it so much more.
Exactly. Ownership.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like you just said, it's not us saying this is the music that we think would work for you. That I just love that. It's like they have created the tool and we are just bringing it up if they want to use it. Yeah. And then it's something that they can use outside of mentor sessions. Of course, we can give this to their parents, or they can use it on their own. We can add to it. We can continue to build. We can think about, when we did use it, did it help? Like, I could think that I want to listen to something when I'm mad that I come up with when I'm regulated, and then I go to listen to it and I'm like, I don't want to listen to that. I want to change it, right? And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Okay, one more before we wrap up, the humming exercise, because so what we've talked about so far, I love, because it doesn't require any instruments, and our sites may or may not have instruments. But so the humming exercise is really simple, but it's profound. Could you explain the vagus nerve connection and how humming can be a co-regulation tool that mentors can use?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said earlier, just to jog people's memory, vagus, it means laundering. So it's all over the body, and humming creates vibration. So the top of the vagus nerve is at the bottom of the brainstem, and it goes spread down all over the body, brainstem. And if you think about the body as we hum, the parts of the body that vibrate most, your cheeks, your mouth, your throat, and your chest. So that's the area where we can trigger the vagus nerve into calming down. So when we hum, and especially when we hum together, our body and our nervous system is literally in sync or moving towards being in sync, which is why it's so helpful for co-regulation. You see mum and babies, young parents of babies, when they're upset, what do? We bounce them. That gives them the rhythm because that regulates the heartbeat, that regulates the sense of safety. And we also hum to them. We hum lullaby. And if you think about lullaby, it's got all the qualities that we talk about. Very steady rhythm, very limited range. And especially pair with the voice, you are using your voice to calm the child down. And when people sing to their child, or when we sing together, it generates oxytocin in our body as well. So when we hum with people, we stimulate the vagus nerve, calm our whole body down, not just our throat, not just our brain, the whole body. And another random one, ventral vagus. Ventral means belly. And that's because that's the front of the body. And when we engage the nervous system, we engage with not just the brain, not just our mind, but also our gut. It also regulates how we sleep as well. So everything that keeps us alive. And rest, our body needs rest to grow and to process complex thoughts and to learn things. So affirming is such a simple thing, but it is so effective in slowing down the heart rate, lowering our cortisol, and improving how we bond with our people.
I can imagine if somebody said, like, let's hum together, I might be like, ugh. But if we were doing something during it, like if we were, let's take a walk and like for 5 steps we'll hum and then for 5 steps we won't, or even like drumming and humming together, which would it be okay for people to just drum on like a tabletop or something that they have and hum together so that it's, I don't know, you're doing something a little bit more than just humming together.
Less weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it? The thing is, it is weird if we intentionally do it. But like when you're wiping down the table and you're just humming to yourself, it's not weird. So
Right.
I think the weirdness come from how personal the voice is for us. Because when you hum to yourself, it's not weird. Like when you hum when there are other people around, it is weird. It's quite an intimate experience, isn't it? And I think that's why a lot of literature written around mother and babies, because like in the very early days, mother and babies are one, and humming, it's personal, but it's personal between the sphere of the bottle of this really intimate new family unit. Absolutely, and even singing creates vibration, not as much as humming, but if singing feels more natural, feels more accessible to people, go for it. And you mentioned tapping on the tabletop and stuff. That's absolutely fine. So if you think about EMDR, I think it's that now. EMDR, really, we don't just use eye movement, and actually I rarely use eye movement as stimulation with children. It's too big. And what we tend to do is bilateral movement. So anything that involves left, it encourages the two hemispheres to connect, and therefore encourages new insights and help us process trauma. So drumming is a really good bilateral movement, and boxing as well. So sometimes what I do, you don't even do boxing verbs, just ask the child to put their neck like there's boxing on your head. That is really helpful as well. If you have a piece of music, I don't know if you remember about 10 years ago, I am that old. Pops, there was a song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
I know that.
people do that kind of have a rhythm going. And you don't need to use that song, but if you have a piece of music that the young person likes, you can create your own sequence of body percussion to go with it. So it's a bit of a challenge, which is good at actually, and challenge having things that challenge you is one of the most overlooked tools to encourage well-being. So we are designed to need stimulation, mental stimulation, cognitive stimulation, and something that challenges a young person is really good for them. Yeah, using body instruments with a song that they like, that's a really good tool as well.
Yeah, and when I was thinking of even the humming, when you started talking about a song that they like, I'm like, okay, it actually would be a lot easier if you said, what's your favorite song? Are we talking about a song that I liked, and you said, can you hum it for me? That's easier than just hum.
Yeah.
Like just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because you need to, yeah. And like even seeing if you can like guess a song. There's a game that I used to play that like you couldn't sing it, but you could just hum it or something, and you'd look at the card, and of course the kid would have to know the song. It'd have to be a list of songs the kid liked, but then the mentor could guess which song they're humming, so that it makes it less about we're humming than.
Yeah.
But I love it all, and now like my brain is going all sorts of directions because we give our mentors structured activities that are not like, they're not like, wow, this is an incredible activity, but they're just to offer some structure to the session so that they have discussion that keeps going, so that they don't get stuck, so that they understand which life skills they're working on. And this interview has me like wanting to create a like 10 pack of just like music activities, because I think it would be really helpful for the mentor as well. In that co-creation, it's so rewarding in this work when you start realizing that like you made something with somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's one way you can really, it sounds like this music has such the opportunity for let's do this together. And that's what we're all about. We're all about building the relationship and trust and safety above working on any specific life skill.
Yeah. Thank you.
This has been, yes, absolutely. I'm like, this is so helpful. It feels like such a no-brainer. And I think that even I like, tried to overcomplicate it and maybe thought you need to be really musical. Like I think a lot of people think that like I'm not musical. Like I feel like I'm creative, but in other ways. And I got like piano lessons and just like learned to memorize one song. You know what I mean? There was no reading music. It didn't come to me naturally at all. So that kind of made me think that I wasn't musical. But if you talk to me about the things you have or how music moves me, or I see myself in different music pieces or whatever, it's like, of course, I resonate. And of course, I could do some of those activities, So I think that this brings down some of those barriers.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I think it's important to explore your own relationship with music as well. If you work in music, and just the final nuggets for mentors. The exercise that I was going to give you and for ending piece is practice. Just choose a piece of music and listen to it mindfully. Because when was the last time you listened to a piece of music, really listen to it, like 30 seconds, and challenge yourself? how many instruments can I hear? Really listen to that piece of music, because that, number one, helps you get reflect on your relationship with music, and the process of listening to a piece of music very mindfully helps us slow down as well. And again, it is something that you can use with young people if you want to practice attention, focus attention, shared attention, naming how many qualities, how many experiences they can hear, or naming what is the specific part of this piece of music that you like best experience, but also in mindfulness experience.
Absolutely. I love that. And that seems like a really good starting place for mentors to do it by themselves and then do it with a kid or bring it into their sessions. So can you tell us about anywhere people can reach you, or do you have services, or how can people get additional help?
You can find me on clapping, clapping and tooting, like trumpet. So you can find me on my website. I have a free guide on 6 ways of incorporating creativity in your practice. And I also do consultation to help people incorporate creativity in their practice, non-music therapists. I think if you're not using music, you're missing out. And you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. I am one of those people who are rubbish at Instagram because I'm a only practitioner. I think you can hear my attraction lies in the therapy room. I work in the therapy room, and I'm not a very good social media person. When I do a podcast like this, I put it out, and you will find many more podcast interviews with me in it, where there are different little nuggets that you can listen to as well.
Amazing. And we'll make sure to link all of those in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was really, really helpful. And I agree with you. If you're not incorporating music in some way, you're missing out. And we have a lot of kids that they are the ones that are interested in music. They're bringing music to us. They might bring their guitar with them to a session or something. So being able to really incorporate that as one of their strengths and interests, I'm really excited for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.